Welcome, everyone, to this week of Devotions with Chaplain Dan. I'm Dan Bonner, and it's a real privilege to be with you. I know that many of you are involved in many things here in the Australia communities. Staff people are, yes, you are full up to the gills sometimes, especially when it rains or the lights have problems or something didn't get delivered that should have. Oh, yeah, staff, I know you have problems. And I encourage all of us who are residents here to be understanding. I know that the residents, you are understanding and appreciative of our wonderful staff here in the Australia communities. And if you're residents listening today, I want to wonder out loud with you. Now, I'm speaking, yes, as one of the chaplains, but let me speak for just a moment as a resident in these days. There is a hunger that I feel myself. I'm not going to necessarily lay that on you, other residents who are watching this morning, but I feel a hunger to listen for God. There is so much noise around, so many stories, so many activities, not activities at Australia, but activities in the world. There are so many conflicts, and there is so much stress because we still, like it or not, live in a time that is very, very unusual as this COVID pandemic continues. Some of the most active people who are residents secretly might feel stressed. Perhaps you are. And cover it over with a lot of activity, chatter yourselves. I'm not saying that's what I think you do, but others of us are quiet. We are, well, oftentimes kind of wondering what comes next. What will happen in our world? What will happen to my family? What will happen even to me? Those observations that there are stresses and strains from so many directions today lead me to this first of what I hope will be 3 successive helpful devotionals on the subject, the title, Listening for God. Now, I want to be careful and point out the subject is not quite listening to God, because, frankly, I'm not, arrogant enough to say I can always hear God and I better listen. God is God. God is the creator and sustainer of us all. and how we hear God's voice, God's assurance, God's peace with us, how we experience that. That's what I want to talk about. So an activity for us, recognizing that God speaks as God chooses to speak. So the challenge is, how are we going to listen? I want to suggest there are 3 ways. And today, the first is that we can listen for God in a devotion of prayer. Yes, prayer. Oh, come on, Dan. We know all about prayer. Maybe some of you thought or thinking. Well, before you turn off the television or change the channel, let me ask us to revisit whether we are plumbing the depths of possibility and listening for God in intentional seeking and conversation with God. That's my definition of prayer. Listening for God in intentional seeking and conversation with God. Prayer. We know, of course, that Jesus was, yes, a great teacher, an incredible healer, an extraordinary preacher, and we know that Jesus, in the fullest extent, was the Son of God. But Jesus we have in the 4 Gospels also is one of us. And if you look in any of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, or Luke, or John, I think you'll find that Jesus needed to go apart, away from the crowds that were following, kneel, the Bible often says, and raise his eye toward heaven. We don't know that. Bow his head. We don't know the posture. But we do know that so many times Jesus went apart to pray. He listened for God's advice, counsel, direction in prayer. I can only remind you of one example. Jesus taught us all to pray like this. And I think he developed this as he developed his own prayer life. May we know the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Come on now, God. Thy kingdom come. We need you. Confession. We ain't got it together by ourselves. Thy kingdom come, but Lord, thy will, not mine, be done. On earth, the whole of the earth, not just my little corner, as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Whatever it is that we need, Lord, we wait and ask give us what you know is best for us. Forgive us our daily bread and deliver us from evil. Oh, no, I left something out. Lord, give us our daily bread and allow us to forgive others as we have been forgiven. And then Jesus goes on, for thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. That prayer carries so much in terms of the posture, the content. Father, allow me to forgive as you have forgiven me. Father, please give me what I need, my children need, our world needs, our daily bread. Yes, and forgive our trespasses. Well, I'm mixing the phrases up to kind of encourage you to think for a moment, and not just think, but pause for a moment and see that in a prayer like that, we open ourselves to God. And that's what Jesus did in prayer over and over again, particularly in times of stress. The Garden of Eden, or the Garden of Gethsemane, forgive me, not Eden. The Garden of Gethsemane, he prayed before he was taken and crucified, over and over. Jesus prayed to listen for God's guidance. Do you pray on a regular, disciplined basis? I'm not talking about just going to chapel services and praying. No, I'm talking about, for some, it's starting every day with a time of quiet prayer where we petition God, but then listen for God in the quietness of our rooms. Or it can be late in the evening as we retire and go to bed. The time is not so important, I think, as the discipline of listening. Prayer is not words spoken, correctly thought out, read from a book. The prayer that can open us to God's voice is a prayer of the heart, or most of all, we seek him that we might truly find him. May your prayer life and mine improve and increase in these days and give us a new and hope-filled context in which to listen for God. God bless you. I look forward to being back with you on Wednesday for our next devotion about listening for God. I hope you'll join us on Channel 18 at 10:30 in the morning. I'm Chaplain Dan, and it's been a gift to be with you today.